Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
Top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And before we start the proceedings, we start the day on a rather somber note. The news yesterday of the passing of a fine gentleman and a super marksman and the person who created the STF, Ravi Jayawardene, son of the former president and a gentleman to his core. And there's something that's absolutely wonderful that we can take from Ravi, and that was how he behaved even though he had a presidential father. And that's his life, his example can be a useful tool for all those errant sons of politicians who roam about breaking every rule and amassing ill-gotten wealth. Ravi was a gentleman to the fingertips, and Sri Lanka mourns his loss and celebrates his wonderful life. And our guest this morning on Newsline is the news editor of that other wonderful place, the Island newspaper. Very good morning to you, Shamindra Ferdinando.
Good morning, Faraz.
How are you?
I'm fine, but the country is not.
The country is not.
Yes.
I must commend your newspaper on a wonderful editorial. And I am not berreting you for that, like certain politicians do from time to time, but great editorial.
By Mr. Prabhat Sabantu. He's the Island editor.
Mr. Sabantu has written a wonderful editorial today, and it goes straight there, straight to the heart. Wonderful. Now then, why do you say the country's not doing well? Yesterday, you wrote something in the front page of your paper that the power sector is in trouble again. What's going on?
Actually, Rajit Kirtitenakon, one of those people who had worked very hard to change the government in January 2015, okay. He has accused this government of corruption in this particular sector, in the power sector. He issued a statement alleging that very influential people in the power ministry, those who had worked for the previous government, are purposely delaying projects to ensure that the country continues to depend on diesel power generation.
So, it's the diesel mafia you're talking about?
Yes. So it's not the media, it's Rajit Kirtitenakon who made this allegation, and we raised this issue with Mr. Jayasuriya, who is the chairman of the BOI. He confirmed it. He confirmed it. Mr. Jayasuriya, according to Mr. Jayasuriya, that there had been several projects initiated from 2005 during the previous government, but for some reason the previous government and the Yahapana regime, they have not taken action on these projects. So it's an issue. So it's an issue raised by them, not by the media. The media reported it, and during
as they would.
Yes. So during yesterday's briefing given by the ministry, power ministry, a journalist raised this issue, and over this issue, the deputy power minister Ajit P. Pereira called Rajit Kirtitenakon and Jayasuriya traitors.
Oh, it's that word again.
Yes.
If that word was very well used
by the previous government. Yes. Yeah. So anybody who
didn't conform was a traitor.
Yes. So it's a very interesting situation. The first time a minister has used this term on people who had really worked hard to bring the Japan change.
But this power sector is forever and a day always controversial. Now, if you remember the coal business, and Dr. Suren Bhattagoda, the secretary, announced or advised the cabinet of ministers that should they go ahead and cancel, maintain the cancellation with that firm that the Supreme Court held to have acted out of the ordinary and out of tender procedure, that if the cabinet went ahead with that cancellation, that the government of Sri Lanka stands to be taken to court by that Singapore company. He didn't bother to advise the cabinet that the Supreme Court made very clear that they had breached various regulations and procedures, and that no court worth its salt would dream of giving away compensation. However, Dr. Bhattagoda that was his advice to the cabinet. But Dr. Bhattagoda is operating double standards, because there's another company backed by the Malaysians who are trying to do a hybrid power project. It's not just one fuel. They can use up to 3 different types to power it. $22 million later, the Power Ministry have got various sorts of blocks in the way of this company, KLS, I can name them. But Dr. Bhattagoda isn't advising the Cabinet Ministers that they too are contemplating legal action, and they too may well sue them, if not for their local partners. So, double standards, Shamindra.
I'm not surprised for us. Not surprised. I mean, it's been happening in this country over the past so many years. So, anybody willing to, take care of officials or the ministers, they are very well looked after. I mean, it's very obvious today, very obvious. And if you take the power sector, you see that this group was so powerful that they were able to get rid of the chairman, that's Mr. Maitri Gunaratne.
Yes.
A person appointed by the president.
Yes.
Right? So that's their power. That's their power. I mean, just imagine getting the system to get rid of Maitri Gunaratne.
Yeah.
And abolish that Lanka Coal Private Limited, I think.
Yes.
And nothing happened. Then subsequently they went to the president. Then the president directed the CID to investigate. They recorded his statement.
But this is all this leads to nowhere. All this leads to nowhere. I'm sorry to rabbit on about the money and so on, but none of this is leading to any attempt to secure the money. In the previous government, some lot of coal was handed over willy-nilly, like it's their grandmother's property, to some Indian company, without any guarantees, nothing in place. What happened? What happened to the losses suffered by the people? That was over $10 million.
Yeah, so for us, that's the whole issue. The previous government, the people voted against the previous government because the Yahapalana fellows repeatedly said that the Rajapaksas robbed the country. And they accused the previous government of corruption, irregularities and various other things. Right? Now, these people are brought into power.
They're brought into power and they're doing the same things all over again.
The same thing. Now,
let's go for a short commercial break here. Don't go away. After all, this is Newsline. Stay tuned.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. Senin esenin සියල්ලගෙන ඔබේ ජීවිතය අලුත් කරන ප්‍රවෘත්තියක වටිනාකම
TV1 News හැමදාම රාත්‍රී 8ට
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
Double standards, and we are unearthing more and more of that during the currency of this Yahapalana government. What is their problem, Shamindra? Why can't they have one standard, one honest standard? What's going on?
Now you take the case of National Freedom Front leader Vimal Veerwansa.
Yeah.
Have been accused of abusing state vehicles. The allegation is that he has released vehicles to his relatives.
Yeah.
And some other friends, over 40 vehicles.
And what about the 3 passports?
No, I'm talking about this issue.
This issue.
And now, in addition to Vimal Veerwansa, now see, the other MPs, including Veeravansa, they have brought vehicles on duty-free permits and sold them. So no action taken against them. Now a lawyer has gone to Supreme Court.
That's right.
So on one hand, they accuse Veeravansa of this, and you see the tax relief given to various MPs. Now the JVP MP, each MP has received a tax relief of say up to 500,000 rupees, and others each received over 30 million. So see the difference. I mean, if they are bringing in vehicles on duty-free permits, let all honourable MPs of this parliament bring one vehicle. I mean, then all will get 500,000 or 1 million tax relief. Here some take 500,000 and some take 30 million each.
That's a lot of dosh.
Yes, and one MP from the Vanni representing the TNA, he has received rupees 44 million. So see the thing. What's going on?
So you mean there's no upper limit?
No, absolutely
that's wrong.
That's wrong.
I remember the former Treasury Secretary telling me that these were limited. They had a ceiling.
So can you explain why JVP received 500,000 rupee tax relief, whereas I can name him Honorable Dharmalingam Siddharthan representing the Vanni district. He had received rupees 44 million.
Double standards. It's absolute rubbish.
So
it's you know, we have to have a sense of humour to carry on, really.
Actually, I was watching yesterday's program where you raised an issue with Gampa district MP Kavinda Javadan, and he explained that this government promised 1 million jobs in the private sector. As far as I know, they never said anything about the private sector or the public sector. They promised 1 million jobs.
As usual, the Prime Minister let the people's imagination run riot, so that he can then have a fallback position.
So actually, Honourable MP Jayawardena should explain how Yahapalana government, give the required support to the private sector to create 1 million jobs.
Well, certainly not by raising the taxes on small vehicles and so on.
Certainly not.
Because even those little Bhatta vans are now, the increased tax is about over 1 million rupees, or just about 1 million rupees.
Tax relief. So tax relief to honourable members of parliament, and the public have to pay more.
Higher tax, because somebody somewhere has to pay. It's a bit like that bond. And yes, it is that bond time again, because people must not forget that the actual cost to this country, and it's been all worked out so we can supply the details, is likely to be approximately 145 billion rupees. That's not chicken feed. There are businessmen in this country who've spent a lifetime building products and selling them and employing people and paying their salaries month after month after month after month and paying their taxes and so on. And they can't do this. But yet some young pup managed to pull it off. The transaction of the century. And he didn't do that.
Transaction of the century.
It has to be the transaction of the century. There is no other way. I guarantee you, none of the business heavyweights in this country, none of them will be able to replicate what this pup did.
So it's an achievement, actually.
Of course it is, but it was done obviously with official sanction and with official patronage. There's no other way of putting it. There is no other way. There's no point us dilly-dallying about that. And thank God, and that's another thing. When they think of reducing the powers of the president and so on, we must bear in mind, Shamindra, that it is because of this president that we have at least the Commission of Inquiry. You have to remember that when he was abroad and he asked for this for an inquiry commission to be appointed, somebody jumped the gun and appointed a 3-member committee which had no blessed standing, legal or otherwise. They were just a bunch of friends who were advising them. Do you get friends to advise you when you're writing an article?
Sometimes.
Yes.
People like you, I mean.
Yeah, well, there you go. But there's no legal standing, is there? So, double standards. Now then, what about this business of income tax? They proposed one of the most draconian proposals that has been our misfortune to come across is this business about assessment. They're being assessed. At the moment, I mean, if they assess you and you don't agree, you've got a method to challenge that and come to it. You can have a discussion. Under the proposed system, that discussion component is being taken out, or they propose to take it out. That means what the assessor says is what you will have to pay.
That's final.
That's the proposal. If it goes ahead, it must be. How do you relate that to true democracy?
For us, the government needs a lot of money. They are in serious trouble. So, to provide relief to the members of parliament and to various enterprises.
Yeah.
So, obviously, they are hoping to tax those who could not afford to pay them. And, you know, people are struggling today, obviously. You know, the cost of living, all sort of other issues in this country. Now, later this week, the doctors are going to go on strike. Now that strike will continue during the single new in heavier period. You know.
Yeah.
It's going to be a huge issue. So, but for the government, I think they are basically thinking of raising funds at any cost.
Yeah.
So, I'm not surprised that they want to deprive the people of the opportunity to discuss this issue.
Yeah.
And then, you know, tax them. Because they are in, see, over the past 6 months, 2 or 3 times, they allocated additional money to bring in vehicles, super luxury vehicles to honorable members of parliament.
Yeah.
So, where's the money? We are struggling to pay our...
But they don't seem to be able to collect the money. I mean, there's this other story, wasn't there, about this land in Fort, the UDA land, and there's some problem there. There's always a problem when it comes to collecting money. They give away prime land and then they sit back and probably collect, I don't know, do a little transaction somewhere. But the main thrust is all lost. It's all lovely. It sounds lovey-dovey and everything else during the budget when they say, oh, we'll do this and we'll raise that, we'll do that and we'll raise this, and so on. But when it comes to actually collecting the money, there ain't no money.
Yes, so it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue the government is not capable of handling. Because they have too many issues. They have ICTA, right? So,
well, they have all these issues.
They have number of issues, beginning with the central bank fraud,
yeah.
Right? So, at the onset, there's a problem. Now it continues.
Yeah.
Now, you will see there are a number of issues these people are struggling to cope with, but they are unable to.
How do these people show their faces in public? I mean, you know, witness after witness has come in there under oath and said all the negativities, and they're singing loud and clear now that they don't have their boss standing on the side. So now that's why it's essential when people in authority are accused of something for them to step aside so that this thing... Mr. Mahendran was described as the sacrificial lamb. But there were various issues about this bond thing which doesn't sound right, and we hope the Commission of Inquiry will look into it. And one such thing, Shamindra, is that if you remember, the Prime Minister made a speech in Parliament on the 17th of March 2015 to explain this concern about the bond. And in that speech he said that he appointed a committee, that means his 3-member committee, on the 27th of February. How can he do that? Did he know something was wrong on the day it was issued? Nobody's ever explained this point to us. Nobody's ever done that.
Yes. So, you mean he said that? Sure. He must have made a mistake.
It's in the Hansard. Well, it's up to him to then correct it.
No, it's a genuine mistake.
But he couldn't possibly have appointed them on the 27th of February. So he's losing the plot. Anyway.
But Faraz, I must tell you that by dissolving the parliament in 2015,
that was another tragedy.
yes. So if the Yahapal government allowed Mr. Deogunasekara to present his report on the fraud,
We could have stemmed the loss.
certainly. But unfortunately, the SLP and the UMP had to protect their interest, and they got together and dissolved the parliament and save a set of people who had done immense damage to this country. So I don't blame one political party because it's for us it's very wrong for the SLP to blame the UMP on this issue because they are in there together. You simply cannot enjoy perks and privileges of the UMP-led administration. Then all of a sudden blame the UMP for everything.
You talk about collective responsibility.
Yes, because the SLP is equally responsible for the situation. Because at the time they appointed Mr. Mahendran as the governor of the central bank, they knew that he's not a Sri Lankan. He's a Singaporean national. Right? So it's not fair to blame the UMP only.
We'll take those on board. What about double standards at this UNHCR? What's happening there then?
For us that this government, again, both the SLP and the UMP, they together, they reiterated their commitment to implement the October 1st, 2015 resolution.
This is 90/1, is it?
It's 30/1.
30/1.
And so they have again promised the international community that there would be a domestic judicial mechanism with the participation of foreign judges. So although the Prime Minister and the President repeatedly say in Colombo that foreign judges would not be allowed, we have promised Geneva again. We have reiterated our commitment to foreign judges, prosecutors, defense lawyers.
But now we have the foreign minister also saying that there will be no foreign judges.
Actually, the TNA spokesman, Jaffna District MP Sumandiran, very clearly said that they received a promise from this government that foreign judges would be invited. And Sumandiran said that if they feel that it's contrary to the constitution, to amend the constitution. So they must ask Sumandiran now. Last week, the President and the Prime Minister, they were intrinsically with Honorable Opposition Leader Sammanda, who 2 weeks before in New Delhi alleged Sri Lankan government had killed 150,000 Tamil people. So I think the government should ask the TNA and all other parties to explain how they reached these figures. Right?
Because he's pulling these figures out of thin air?
And I think so, obviously, because this situation today cannot be blamed only on the Yahapala government, because the previous government, the Rajapaksa government, did not handle it well. So
they didn't handle it full stop.
No, they caused immense damage by failing to address the issues, and in fact they hired very expensive US PR firms, and I think they spent over $6 million on them.
But peanuts, really.
Yeah,
because you want to spend.
But don't compare with that payment with the central bank bond issue. Two different things, right? Okay. So my issue is the war-winning government did not bother to address accountability issues. So we are suffering, as a country. We are suffering.
We are suffering generally, and specifically the people of the former conflict areas continue to suffer, as do those people who are in a camp in Putlam, who were evicted by the LTTE from Mana within 24 hours. They've been in that camp for over 30 years. And they still remain displaced people. So let's not forget them when we're talking about the internally displaced.
Yes.
Because, these foreign agencies very easily forget that group of people. But we can't forget anyone. On that note, we're going for another short break. Don't go away. Helping you stay connected, as always, is Newsline.
With Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline. We have Shamindra Ferdinando, news editor of The Island, with us. Now, Shamindra, what hope for the people to, it's all well and good having all these inquiries and so on. But what about the money? They are getting away with it every day. Yeah, but when we had Faisal Mustafa before, and we had the young man yesterday. Yesterday, young man didn't disclose actually, but he admitted. But he admitted, Kavind Jawad admitted that it was the biggest issue. Indeed, it was. Issue, yes. Well, you've got to be silly or loopy or both if you don't think. If you think otherwise, if you think that this bond is some small little thing, well, you're wrong. Because that's an insult to the
Would they summon MP Jayawardena before the disciplinary committee?
Well, I think the young man is going to be in trouble with his dear leader. Somebody else told me, another deputy minister, that it cost him his job. He was hoping for a cabinet job until he came on television and sort of admitted that there was a problem. So for the mere admission, he's been demoted. Or he hadn't been given an opportunity to be a cabinet minister. But, what do you think that we'll see an end to this? Do you think we'll get our money back? Do you think there'll be a super gains tax imposed on all primary dealers from whenever? From 2005 if they want to?
I don't think so for us, because if that would happen...
But they imposed a 25% super gains tax on businesses and said that it was probably ill-gotten gain.
If that happens, the Yapana government will collapse. So I don't see...
What? Because they super gain tax on 15 primary dealers?
You cannot take action against a few. So if you take...
only 15. All you have to do is say super gains tax 25% or 100% over ₹1 billion. No. That'll net a few people.
Because as you pointed out earlier, obviously the operation had been sanctioned at the highest level.
Had to be.
Yeah. So that means if you cannot abandon Mr. Mahendran now. If you abandon, that means this government will collapse, because...
Well, it's very simple. I think Mr. Wickramasinghe will have to choose between his friend or his political career. What do you think?
It's not clear for us. I'm not sure, because what I know is that those powers who had brought this government into power, they would try their best to ensure they continue until 2020.
But because they cannot we had David Cameron, who backed Brexit, or who didn't want Brexit. Okay?
Yeah.
The minute he lost the vote, what did he do? He went back there and signed his resignation papers.
Don't expect Sri Lankan politicians to do that. No.
What we expect here is, we have the Prime Minister who says that he asked for the system to be changed. We have the former governor, Arjuna Mahendran, who admitted to one of the corps, either the first or the second, that he was only carrying out the instructions of the Prime Minister. Only? What about the Monetary Board? Were they reduced to nothing? What were they doing? Sleeping? Whilst the back door was open and all the money was being spirited out to a waiting customer, the EPF funds. And guess what? The EPF didn't have to go in the secondary market. Why don't people get this? This was a premeditated fraud.
Obviously, I mean, your coverage of this issue, I mean, Sirasa and TV1 coverage, and the statements made by Mr. Gunasekara, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, Rusiripala on Sirasa. I mean, but today, people don't care. That's the whole issue.
Why is that? Why don't they care when there's so much of money at hand? Imagine the number of houses. Do you know, they're arguing about these houses in Parliament and wherever it is. But those people who are waiting for these houses are still waiting.
Actually, for us, when Mr. Gunasekara started this investigation, he had to bring in Dr. Vijayawardena, and he got Dr. Vijayawardena to advise honourable members of Parliament in respect of this operation, because the honourable members were not aware of it, right? So do you expect the ordinary people to know what's really happening in this country? You ask about Geneva, you ask 10 MPs, I am sure out of at least 7 or 8, they do not know the specific allegations made against the Sri Lankan armed forces. Now there's a debate coming on 6th. You watch it. See, these people are not prepared, and the members are not, they don't care. They basically care about their perks and privileges. That's the problem. I don't blame one political party, it's the system.
We need to, in conclusion, what we need is to stay focused, right?
Certainly. I think it's up to the media to put pressure on these political parties, all of them.
Up to the media?
Up to the media. Actually, media is the opposition today, not the joint opposition or the TNA, right? Because although this government has failed to probe properly and find out those who robbed the country during the previous administration, that does not mean they did not rob.
It doesn't mean that they are robbing as we go along. That's what you mean.
So, both sides. It's both sides.
On that note, Shamindra Ferdinando, it's been wonderful having you on our program, and thank you. And Godspeed as you continue to report on matters that bother the public's conscience. Thank you, Shamindra Ferdinando. Thank you very much for watching Newsline. We look forward to having you on our program tomorrow morning, where we hope to interview 2 youthful German members of Parliament. There you go, the only place to be tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock on TV1. Take care, have a great day, and God bless.
That's good.